Yeah, so let's see. What do you think defines a person's identity? Is it based on the things that they are in relationship to, like their family or their sort of career, maybe their friends, or is identity formed mainly on someone's sort of understanding of themselves? And if it's a false dichotomy, then tell me that too. Maybe there's a third option.
Yeah, I mean, initially I did think that the third option, I guess it could be taken in different ways where, like, I think that someone's, like, behavior and, like, interactions with the world are the best, I guess, signs of their identity, but someone can identify with a certain thing and then still act like, in opposition to that, with that. I think it's like a combination of, like, the two, and then they manifest in someone's actions and interactions. Like, their identity, their, like, self-proclaimed identity is probably reflected in the people that, they surround themselves with.
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
way, their interests and stuff. And then that probably also has an influence on.
Yeah. So maybe it looks more like a feedback loop.
Yeah.
Okay, so you self-identify with something, and then you, because of that self-identification, you tend to hang out with other people.
Right. Or chicken or the egg, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, that's very true. It's a hard thing to pin down. Is there ever any, like, okay, so that chicken or the egg thing, so do you think it's possible to be more precise, or is it sort of this ambivalent, like, phenomenon that's...
I think maybe it depends on an identity that someone, like, has. Like, for example, being a part of, a certain ethnicity is kind of given to you. So it's not really depending on people that you're around, but more so what you're born into. But then, like, your culture is...
So maybe this would be a more pointed question. What do you think should people use to define their identity?
I think probably the first option. I don't remember how you worded it.
Okay, based on the people you interact with and your career and your purpose, kind of, like,
sort of, yeah.
The roles that you serve.
Yeah, like
that sort of idea.
I think that's like maybe a more accurate way to determine your identity, because you can claim to be a lot of things.
Yeah.
But,
okay, yeah.
And I'm not saying that, identifying with something isn't like valid enough, but I think it's more valid to identify them with things that are apparent.
Yeah, so it's sort of demonstrable. It's like not something that can be muddled by some sort of self-deception.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's just like how it is.
Yeah.
Instead of how it ought to be.
Yeah, and obviously there has to be likely a balance. Like, if you're just judging your identity based on the opinion of one other person.
Right. Yeah, and it's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah. So, is there a sort of, if you're basing your identity on the roles that you serve or the relationships you have, is there a certain hierarchy that should conform to? Like, maybe one facet of your life, or one relationship or role that you serve should take primacy, and then another...
I think maybe that's the point where you have that, like, agency to, like, control that. And then if, for instance, you're like, you identify as, like, a stay-at-home mother, and then you decide, I don't think this is, like, fulfilling my purpose anymore, then, like, you have the ability to change it. In order to identify with a new, like, identity, you have to change your behavior too.
Okay, so maybe it starts with the choice to move in a different direction. or does the instinct to move sort of operate at a deeper level and then maybe rationalize it later?
Maybe.
Do you
Yeah,
think so?
I think that could definitely be true. Yeah, I mean, I think there's always deeper motives that even like we can't identify like consciously.
Yeah. So I guess to broaden the scope of the conversation, do you think sort of the purpose of life, this is ridiculous to even say, but the purpose of life is to fully actualize your identity in the sense of like flesh it out completely? Or do you think that is a hyper simplification of what the purpose of life might be?
I don't think there is a purpose to life.
Okay, that's fine too. Yeah.
But I think that you can make meaning from it.
Okay.
And I guess that's like, from that question, I could ask you another question of like purpose, like with what goal? I mean, I guess that's essentially what you're asking, but like
Kind of a synonym of purpose in a sense, yeah.
yeah. But like, I guess from a perspective of like, you know, for some people their main values maybe with just self-fulfillment, but then others maybe leaving a legacy. And
Yeah.
I guess that in turn maybe fulfills them.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there is no definite purpose to life. Is there a purpose to each person's life that they sort of inevitably give based on what they find most meaningful? Or is there like basically a choice you have to pursue something meaningful and give your life some sort of idiosyncratic purpose, like that pertains to yourself, and then the choice to just open your hands and accept maybe the ultimate purposelessness? Is there that choice that people have, or does everyone have an inevitable purpose that pertains to them? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I don't know, if everyone had an inevitable purpose, then why is it so hard to find?
Okay.
I feel,
Yeah.
because that's kind of what I've struggled with in the past, and I've kind of come to this place where I like have come to terms with like there's
Yeah.
not really
Yeah.
a purpose, but more so like different like goals that I can set for myself. Because
Sorry, go ahead.
after taking like biology classes and learning about how
Yeah.
life works, it's just, you know, a really magical coincidence and like, you know, incredible circumstance that like happened. But I don't think that, in my opinion, I think that it is not for any higher purpose than to like survive.
Fair enough. So I guess that's part of what I was getting at then. Like, do you think the choice arises for people to just pursue something deeply, as hard as they can, based on what they see as meaningful, and sort of give themselves that purpose to the degree that they commit to it, almost? And then the other choice being a sort of drift, and is that drifting then like accepting the ultimate reality? Or is the person's driven sort of committed purpose also real?
I think they're both. Yeah, I think they're both real.
Okay.
Because I guess I think it is a choice.
Okay.
And to the person who's chosen a purpose for themselves may either do so without the knowledge that like, or recognition that maybe it's not given to them, but they gave it to themselves, or like they chose it themselves.
Like they might tell themselves, quote unquote, that they were given it when really they chose
like
it.
that it's destined for them.
Okay.
But really like there was a set of events and like messaging that they received that led them down that path.
Yeah.
Whereas there's the other path of like, or the same path, just with a different motive, where you recognize like, oh, reality is there is no purpose, but I need that for myself, and so I need to give myself purpose.
So in your estimation, there's really like the conclusion, unless you fall into some sort of depression, I suppose, or some sort of passive state. And maybe not. Maybe there's a sort of door. But it's either you observe what's happening and you make the choice consciously, or you just kind of stumble into it and call it fate.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So I guess I have two paths. Really, it's hard to clump them together into one question. One question I have is, okay, is that choosing and committing, is that synonymous with sort of taking on responsibilities? Taking on responsibility?
I think so.
Okay.
You're holding yourself accountable for
Okay.
committing to that purpose.
And that sort of has this intrinsic meaning that's associated with it?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. And then my other question would be, is there a way to, in this sort of conception, to accept the purposelessness? Because it sounds like that's the underlying reality. Is there a way to accept that in a way that isn't
Like,
depressive?
yeah.
Because it sounds like if you make the active choice to build yourself meaning, then couldn't there always be that thing in the back of your head that's telling you it's all worthless or something like that?
Oh,
It creates a sort of cognitive dissonance that might be uncomfortable.
Yes.
I guess I've been talking a lot, so what is this arising?
I mean, I think that the goal of avoiding discomfort entirely is just like impossible to achieve, and then that, in turn, would never make you satisfied, fulfilled.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like I'm like a pretty realist kind of person instead of like optimistic or pessimistic. Like I try to see things like just as they are, and from that, like I have this desire to like accept things as they are, but also maintain a state of like content with like myself in the moment.
Fair enough.
But like, I don't know. I think that I'm in the place of accepting that there's no, purpose.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something like driving it all, because like I have a personality.
Yeah.
I gravitate towards certain things and certain people, but like.
And it doesn't seem like arbitrary. Like it seems like your personality is sort of has a particular shape. That's.
I don't know. It goes back to the identity of like it changes around in different situations.
Yeah.
But I think it has like a approximate shape.
Yeah, as an approximate shape, and then there's that feedback loop that we talked about.
Yeah.
Super back into that. So, in that case, if there's a sort of underlying purposelessness, and maybe the route to go is to accept that and choose purpose anyway because we're not, or something like that.
Yeah.
Then how do we explain the apparent order in the world? Like it seems like things hold together. Like it seems like when I wake up, the thing that I put on my desk yesterday is still there, and the person I talked to still remembers me. And there seems to be some kind of like something holding things together. And so why is there, if there's that underlying kind of purposelessness, how do we explain the apparent order?
So that means CSU is 100 hours.
And I want to make sure my phone is charging. I don't think it is. Yeah, now it is. Okay.
Good save.
Yeah.
Well, like my mind immediately goes to the word balance.
Yeah.
Of just, if, like energy is never destroyed or created, it always just like changes.
Mm-hmm.
And but why? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think about that? Because
what do I think?
Yeah.
Asking all these questions. Okay. Well, I want to dig into what you said first, at least. So balance. but it's sort of this unexplainable mystery.
There's just this
Like you mentioned
ebb
quantum.
and flow. Like I'm looking at this tree right now and thinking
Yeah.
like the tree has for all we know, it has no idea that it is here specifically in this time.
It seems to be like
But it seems to be alive and
Yeah.
functioning properly.
Yeah.
Why? Because some seed fell and it got water and then its processes happened.
Yeah.
And like going back to the beginning of life on this planet, like there was water and the
Okay.
sun was a certain distance away.
and it just was by happenstance, by some strange and sort of beautiful, maybe hopefully mystery, things have arisen the way they have, maybe by some mechanistic causal chain that we can analyze to some degree with the science that we do.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that the end of the story?
I mean, I in my mind, we're just the same as that tree, except we just have, fortunately or unfortunately, developed the capacity to perceive ourselves and our place with, in proximity to other people and people before, and we're gonna die, and everyone dies, and like
Yeah.
everyone, or
Yeah.
whether people are reborn or they go to a different place afterwards is up for question, but like.
Well, it seems like with the mechanistic sort of framework, then we would inevitably just turn into dust, right? Our consciousness would cease because it's being sort of perpetuated by the circuits in our brain.
Right. Yeah.
Apparently, I mean, would you say different than what I just said?
Like a month ago, probably I would say the same, but I recently was introduced to like some very basic concepts of Buddhism and how like everyone's conscience is linked together. It's like one
Yeah.
collective entity.
Sounds like is that it's Carl Jung? Is that good? It's a psychologist. He talks about the collective unconscious, but he wasn't a Buddhist figure. So.
Well, I'm sure. I bet there was some overlap there. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just like a book that I read in my class. So I'm not sure exactly who was inspiring it.
Okay, yeah.
But
So if I guess Buddhist philosophy, and I know very little, but of what I do know, it's like something like we have to eliminate our desires and accept the oneness of being.
yes,
And we
and then reach nirvana.
yeah. So it's sort of like eliminating the illusion of separation.
Yes, yeah. So like I am you and you are me, basically, if it really comes down to it. And like this vessel that my conscience is like using
Yeah.
to perceive things is temporary, but my conscience is not, because it's infinite, or like it belongs to everyone.
Yeah. There's something universal, something inextricable, maybe. Is that
Yeah.
the right word? About it?
I don't know what that word means.
Inextricable, like sort of.
Like
I'm
not
using it-
separable.
I'm using it in the sense of it can't be done away with. Like there's something.
Oh, it's been here forever and always will be.
Yeah, like there's something very and utterly real about it that can't be sort of explained away by mechanism. Like it's inextricable. And there's different ways to use that term. I might be butchering it in a certain sense, but that's sort of makes sense to me.
Your explanation of the word makes sense for why you used it.
Yeah.
And I agree.
Okay. And so do you think that there has to be an explanation of that sort that maybe runs parallel to, but is by nature different than the mechanistic explanation that you talked about before? And I might have made that question very confusing.
No, like, is there a link between the, like, science of things and the way that everything is
yeah, and this sort of philosophy that, and not just to say that it's a proposition, just merely a proposition, but how does the mechanistic explanation and the sort of philosophical explanation, how do they weave together? And maybe there's a Buddhist answer that you haven't figured out yet, or something like this. But I don't know if you're fully down that rabbit hole, or.
I mean, the idea of karma in like the Buddhist philosophy is a lot about balance.
Yeah.
And equaling out of forces and interactions and actions and stuff, which I feel like can kind of go hand in hand with natural occurrences that, we use a bunch of, we pollute the air,
Yeah.
you get, acid rain or something.
Okay, yeah. So there are stable patterns that interact in some either reciprocal or parasitical way to our agency, something like that.
Yeah.
There's a sort of Buddhist cognitive scientist that I'm pulling a lot of that terminology from.
And I don't know if it's the,
Yeah.
necessarily that like that is karma, like acid rain is karma, but that karma is one of our explanations for explaining the balance that exists and has existed.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, and does that explanation, is that just a sort of, let's say, tablecloth that we just throw over what could otherwise be explained by mechanistic causes of biology and chemistry? Or is there's something like that word alone can only hold, that can't be further broken down and reduced into mechanism of, like I said, physics, chemistry, science, biology.
Like mechanism as a word?
No, karma.
Karma.
The word that you were talking about. Is that word like, is that the lowest resolution, let's say, of that concept, and it can't be reduced and put under a microscope, let's say? Like, it's not like a blanket that needs to be pulled off and sort of parsed apart by the tools of science, or there's something about that that's irreducible. Would you say that's the case?
I mean, as far as I can, tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that I, as a person, unless I had a lot more time to consider it, could reduce it in such a way. And I don't know if that's something that humans are capable of, or it's,
Okay.
I am specifically not capable of.
Yeah. So do you see it as theoretically possible, or is it, by your view, impossible? Or you just don't know?
I mean, I think theoretically it's possible, especially because it's such a strong belief that it has been proven to some extent.
Okay. So and then if we break that one down, do we ever come to a point where there's some quasi-spiritual religious term that is irreducible by science? Is there such thing?
I don't know. If there is, I just don't know it.
That's a good answer. That's a very honest answer. Yeah. Fair enough.
Do you know one?
Oh.
What is an example of?
Are you past the point of interview and you just want to know what the heck I think about anything? Or
This is the issue, is that you maybe chose not the best person to be talking to, because I am usually the one asking questions.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's okay. everyone asks questions.
I guess to clarify, so that I don't know if I really like completely understand what you mean by that question.
Okay, what do I mean by that?
So like, what's an example of something that is irreducible?
Okay, sure. So, I guess I would think of a Buddhist, for example. I think a Buddhist, like, formally would probably say that the spiritual concepts, and you know what, it probably depends on which Buddhist you talk to. Especially with Buddhism, it's there's not this sort of set dogma exactly. Let's say Eastern Orthodox Christian. Why not? They would say that there are certain patterns, let's say, that can be explained sort of through the lens of narrative or through the lens of agency that aren't analyzable and that can't be reduced by just like mechanistic sort of interactions that can be measured mathematically and empirically. Yeah, and that there are sort of patterns that sit underneath that superstructure, let's say, of math and science that are actually the let's say the engine of perception that even allows us to ask those questions to begin with. That those patterns are so deep that they sort of hold reality together in order for us to analyze it. Something like that.
I see.
Yeah. And so in that sense, they're irreducible by the things doing the analyzing. It almost like you can see it fold in on itself. Maybe like I analyze, but can I ever analyze analyzing? Can the microscope ever look at itself? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's making the claim that like karma and these irreducible concepts existed before we did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's sort of like the Jungian archetype, which is a concept you'll probably encounter in psychology. This collective unconscious that's populated with archetypes that are, in this sort of same sense we're talking about, irreducible. Yeah, like these inextricable, in a sense, like patterns. You know what I mean?
Such as beliefs.
Beliefs. I would say more like almost deeper than that.
Because beliefs are motivated by different ideologies and those
I would say it relates more to the idea, which you might have encountered before as well, that we can't not look at the world through a human brain.
Right.
There's something inevitable about the humanness of our reality because we can't not see it through human eyes. And so that in itself, because he talks a lot about the psyche and how there's a certain fixed structure of it that holds those patterns that we can't do away with, or we do away with the very observer that we inhabit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like that.
There's limitations.
Yeah.
I don't
And explain what you mean.
like. There are going to be things that there are an abundance of things that we do not understand and can't understand. And maybe one of those is how to reduce supposedly irreducible concepts.
Yeah.
Like maybe it, if we were a god, a deity, then like we'd have an understanding. It's like I was watching a show recently, Haunting of Hill House. But the guy in it is like, there's no such thing as supernatural. It's just pre-natural, or something like that. Like, it's just something that we don't understand yet, and so it's not above nature. It's just above our understanding right now.
Okay, so, and maybe that extends into the realm of philosophy. Like we don't have to understand it empirically if we can understand it in a logical way. Mm-hmm. Is that also what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, even if we don't understand it in a logical way, it's still there.
It's still there, but it's always capable of being understood, both by or grappled with and sort of parsed apart by reason and empiricism. It's always capable of that, or is there?
I think that's kind of a like, I don't know the right word. This is gonna sound so like just like offense. I no offense, and this is not like on you, but like I feel like that's having a lot of confidence in humans' ability to understand things. Like taking a stance that like nothing can exist if we can't perceive it.
Yeah, and you wouldn't agree with that.
No,
okay.
I wouldn't.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Because there's, however many years ago we thought that everything revolved around us.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, then I'll ask, can we even know enough to point in the right direction?
I mean, it seems like we've been doing that.
Okay.
Whatever direction is. I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the right direction, but we're going in some direction.
Sure. Okay. And maybe if you observe things correctly, you can know which direction to look, even if you can't fully deconstruct whatever you're looking at.
Yeah.
Do you think?
And I don't know if there's
you can
really
disagree with that too.
I don't know if there's a specific direction for everyone, like a universal one.
Yeah, it's sort of an analogy. It's hard to.
Yeah. But.
So there's nothing universal, and that would break it down even further. Then, so we don't even know if there's the right direction to look. Then.
I guess it's whichever direction you, as an individual, feel inclined. Yeah. Which is like that individual, maybe your purpose.
Okay. Yeah. But it is sort of arbitrary.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I guess we almost did a little circle, so I think that tells me it's a good time to end the conversation. What do you think?
I agree. I need to go take a nap and study for my chem exam.
Fair enough. Well, I hope I didn't burn you out before your test.
No, that's okay. This was like a nice little, not looking at a computer screen.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time. I had a good time talking about this stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked to talk.
Of course.
It was nice to meet you.
It was good to meet you too. And it was
Avin, like
Avin.
Gavin without the G.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. And feel free to go to Ramlink to see what the club's all about.
What is it?
So Ramlink is just the CSU website.
Okay.
It's called Let's Question. So
Let's Question.
You can look up Let's Question. It'll show up with like the white letters.
Yeah.
And there's a YouTube link of it, so I will post it. Are you okay with this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, just so people can watch them back, and it sort of creates some kind of community.
Yeah.
Even though, inevitably I'm in every video, so it's like sort of like it's hard to make it a community when it feels like.
Well, you should recruit some people to facilitate some more conversations.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure I'll see you here.
Yeah, it's good talking to you.
You too.